Welcome to the Data Cloud Podcast. Soren, we're delighted to have you with us.
Thank you for having me.
Few functions are more integral to an enterprise success than effective and efficient customer service and support. And over the past few decades, the means, not just the ends, of sophisticated customer services have proven beneficial to businesses in many ways. By capturing all the information that it requires to deliver customer support, for example, companies coalesce and structure their essential knowledge and free it from silos. By capturing and structuring all the feedback that they receive from what clients and customers tell them about how their products and services are working in use, businesses can gain priceless insights into making products and services better to maintain and to learn how to improve the next iterations. Clearly, a focus on managing and exploiting all the data and information around the service and support function pays huge dividends. And that was true even before we applied machine learning and artificial intelligence tools into the mix. In today's discussion, we'll explore how multinational networking and telecommunications powerhouse Ericsson has employed modern data architectures to further innovate around customer interactions for multiple valuable business benefits. Soren, tell us why it's so important to get the data architecture right in order to pursue better customer service through greater use of AI.
It's a very relevant question. And of course, what's been on our mind for quite a few years. I mean, we have, as a company, wanted to be data-driven in everything we do, whether it's in services, products, the interaction with customers, and what have you, right? But the journey really started on how you drive intelligence. But we realized very quickly that the data fabric, the data foundation, and the data operating model is instrumental in making this happen. So we started a journey of really looking at data as an asset within the company. Prior to this, I would say that we dealt with data as input-output of different processes. We have been a very process-focused company for many, many years. When we started a data journey now here, we realized that the process itself is about driving information and efficiency, but the importance of data is equally important. So managing data and the life cycle of data and having a unified way of working with data is pivotal to make this happen for the journey that we are on. And you could argue that we have been operating also in silos around data, right? And naturally that has meant that everyone within the company or even on the customer side, they do what they have in reach and in view of the data that they have, right? But the opportunity is really now. It's probably the biggest opportunity that I have ever seen happening in the industry right now. Is really breaking down these silos, really working in a data operating model, unifying it. And for Ericsson being an international company, it's very important that we have a unified ways of working with data across the world.
And of course, it's important for this data to be trusted, to be valuable. It's the old adage of garbage in, garbage out. So you want to have that high quality, trusted, secure data. So what has Ericsson done to pursue not only gathering as much data as possible, but adding a qualitative value and benefit as well?
Yeah, so as we put the data operating model in place, we realized that we need to work in two dimensions. One is the digital capabilities that we need to embrace and innovate around. But the other, so to say, more horizontal aspect, across the company, we need to have a data operating model. So we actually assign data managers to operate and take care of the assets as a data asset. So the two dimensions then, the horizontal being the data operating model and the verticals being the digital capabilities. When you then look at that and say, how do you really trust the data? Because when we started the journey, you could argue we had many sources of truth. Whomever wanted to use data only trusted what they had in reach, right? So we collected a lot of data in multiple instances across the company. So now with the data operating model in place, we are really harnessing common sources of truth so that we have one ownership and one drive to ensure that the data is with the quality it needs to have, ensure that it has the freshness that it needs to have, and also to make sure that we have the explainability, the metadata needed behind the data to really put it in the context of the user.
Now, network devices are notorious for delivering reams of data. There's so much log data, for example. What were some of the challenges that you've been facing in order to not get overwhelmed, but find the jewels within all of that vast volume of data when it comes to examining your devices in the field and across entire networks?
Yeah, to your point, I mean, if you look at the mass of data that we have, it's easy to get trapped into a set of noise because there are so much, right? And you have to have the context of what you're trying to look for. So this is where the opportunity comes in for the service organization. This is where we have put a lot of emphasis within our units here in the company to really embrace and embed service knowledge into this process, because that domain expertise allows us to be more focused on the data that we need to capture, but also to understand what is symptomatic in the data versus cause and effect in the data, so that we can really drive an understanding of the true insights that we need to leverage to really understand whether it's performance of our products in the network, whether it's customer experience that our customers are having, or even just looking at correlation points to try to understand what more could we innovate around the usage that our customers are having.
Well, I'm really interested to hear more about how you've gone about this unified data structure and then what you can do with it when you've got it in place. But tell us first a little bit about yourself, about your role at Ericsson, your background, and why taking on these sort of challenges are important and valuable to you in your career and as an individual.
I have had the opportunity and the fortune to be working for a company that allowed me to work in many different roles over the years. So I've been in product side, I've been in sales, I've been in operations. And so all of the dimensions I've been able to see across the company on what really makes our customers' experience really driven. I have been very much focused with a passion around how do we transform to more customer-centric, data-driven activities across the company. So the more the journey started around driving intelligence in everything we do, I realized that my passion is really around driving the strategies for the data and intelligent transformation around everything we do. So I've taken a strong role over the last few years to really do what I can do to further and accelerate the company in this uptake.
And Soren, why do you think this is an exciting time in the evolution of technology to bring about the realization of your passion? Is this a unique inflection point in your thinking? Are there things that we can do now that we couldn't do before?
Absolutely. I would say when you look back at the journey of, for example, the AI machine learning activities, it was very much driven by expertise and teams of expertise within the company, because it required such deep data science expertise or data engineering expertise that it wasn't really accessible for everyone, right? And we have been on that journey for many years, and with the expertise we have developed some very smart and intelligent use cases around it. But the emergence of generative AI and now the agentic AI and the multi-agentic AI is really taking this to a much accelerated pace than we have had in the past. And I think this is really what's opening up the opportunity across the company, because now we can work in natural language, we can work in no-code scenarios, we can really data mine and explore the data in many other ways than just relying on a top of the pyramid expertise to really guide us through. So this is really democratizing things within the company. I think that is really going to accelerate the path forward. When you look at the Gen AI models and the LLM models behind it, right? Now they're pre-trained, right? So, or at least to a great extent pre-trained. So we need to just add our RAG models and such to make it context aware into what we're trying to do. But the playground is accelerating so much faster nowadays with advancements in technology than we used to have.
All right, well, please, if you could describe Ericsson's federated operating model particularly within a hybrid cloud setup. How do you characterize and describe what's come to be the best and most up-to-date approach to this?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, we have been working in silos, and to a great extent, you could argue that we still, to many ways, are working in silos. Not only in silos on our side, between units and such, but also in silos between us and our customers. So the opportunity with really unifying a data architecture is really to embrace more collaboration across Ericsson, across us and our customers. So what we have tried to now implement and really driving forward is a more unified federated operating model. And by that, we mean that we can work in the context of different countries, different regions, and really work with our customers in that region, while at the same time, based on the sensitivity and the privacy and so on, we can harmonize the data on a global level to have the full insights of what's happening all across our customers and all the products and the behaviors of our products. And again, in this context, embedding the services knowledge is really then instrumental. So we're trying to converge between having a federated operating model and embedding the service knowledge into this process to drive, in the end, more insights, having information at the fingertips in discussions and lifting the experience with our customers.
And what have you looked for, particularly in the providers, the vendors, the suppliers, in the infrastructure behind this federated approach? What's important in order for you to get what you need to get this done?
Yes, one of the fundamental aspects. In the past, we used to say that we moved the data to the intelligent processing. That meant we were relying on having data transferred in many instances around the world to a home, so to say, where the applications were driven. With the beauty now with a more federated model is that we can move the intelligence and the logic to the data. That allows us to innovate in much greater extent than we were in the past. And not only can we innovate more, but we can then engage in more partnerships. And this is probably the biggest, so to say, unlocked opportunity for us as we move forward. Working with data in a partnership within the overall ecosystem between partners and us, but also partners on the customer side and the customers themselves. So having the federated operating model around the data architecture is really going to open up a whole new span of innovation, we believe.
And what would you consider some of the key technologies that are endowing you with this ability to break out of those silos and at the same time manage trusted, secure, comprehensive data fabrics?
Yeah, so we know that the mission of just consolidating things to a common data warehouse or a common data storage or what have you, that is almost an impossible journey, right? So we realized we need to be in a hybrid mode across the company. But we also realized that we need to be able to take advantage of the data on a more unified way. So here is the data fabric really plays a critical role to make sure that we can work with multiple databases across the company and also interact with partners and customers on that context, right? So I think as we look forward now, for example, the iceberg standards around how we work in a hybrid mode is really going to make a difference, we believe, for us as we look at the harmonization of different architectures across the world. And then we will see what makes sense to consolidate as a part of this journey. But the first step is really to make sure that we can operate in a more unified way, doing the analytics, doing the insights, and really building the generative AI context above in a more unified way, because that is the real, so to say, innovation aspect we are looking for. The data aspect is more the enabler to make that reality in a more accelerated way.
And of course, doing this isn't just an academic activity. There's some huge benefits. So let's look at some of the takeaways from the business outcomes perspective, customer experience and personalized services, for example, sort of how we started our discussion. How is what you've been doing around this unified data foundation and fabric contributed to the business benefits around customer experience and services, for example?
Yeah, so when you operate in a silo, you don't always have access to the view of each vendor, so say, in that context. So the operators and the customers of ours are operating on their side, and we have been operating on our side. The beauty now with converging these two is that we can be much more in a digital collaborative experience. And that is really the path forward to even accelerate from where we are today. So we see great opportunities in lifting the customer experience when we have more unified data at hand. We can correlate data across our company, across the customers, and also with partners. They're taking advantage of the marketplace, taking advantage of a plethora of different vendors' capabilities, taking advantage of all of the reuse we can also have within the company to correlate new insights that will lift the customer experience. There are so much hidden within the data that in the past we have not been able to use.
And I suppose the foundational description of productivity is doing more and better with less. And so is there a way of using this data to optimize networks or improve energy consumption and performance? How are you able to translate the data investment into solid returns when it comes to efficiency?
Yeah, very, very good, relevant question, right? And we are exploring this in all of the context. I mean, when we look at the energy efficiency, we have already a number of contracts with our customers around the world to work with, let's say, different power consumption schemas. There are low traffic times in the network in different pockets of the network, and we can optimize the usage of energy in that context. But we also look at what might cause anomalies in consumption of energy in the network. And that is also an insight we can bring to our customers through data that we can gather and deliver insights back to our customers, that through explainability, we can help the customers, we can guide the customer on what they can do. And certain things we can even drive in an autonomous way. So we are increasingly driving data as being a part of our journey to intent-based services and intent-based networks, because that is ultimately how we reach the maturity in autonomous networks and autonomous services.
And another facet of better data analysis and access is moving beyond extrapolation to true predictive analytics and being able to analyze for strategic advantage, and particularly against your customers who may not be doing the same diligence when it comes to data. So how are you able to get that intelligence on a predictive decision-making benefit basis?
Yeah, so this all relies on having our targeted information around the data, right? Because if you take all the data, I mean, if you look at some of our global customers, I mean, the data volume are in petabytes every day, right? So that is too much if you argue, what can you do with that? It's really noise to begin with, right? And then we need to understand, what do we look for to really correlate insights that will help the customer? So we try to lift more and more, so to say, experience KPIs in working with our customers to really make that reality possible. So we are trying to embed the service knowledge in capturing the right data at the right time to really make a difference in the end for the experience that our customers are having. And we have done this to some extent already. We applied a number of different activities and technologies in lifting anomaly understanding, lifting a data insight perspective so that we can begin to understand more and more what is happening in our customers' network and how can we correlate information that we may have on the Ericsson side with the customer's data to drive more insights back to the customer.
Yeah, it's fascinating how when you develop this language of data value, that when you extend that out to your supply chain or the ecosystem that you operate in, or directly to your customers, that there's this mutual benefit and more sharing takes place, and therefore more opportunity to use different data sets in different ways. So do you see this data modernization and advantage as a way of binding organizations together? So the silos are not just internal, but you're breaking down external ones, cultural ones even as well.
Yeah, exactly. And I used to say that you don't know what you don't know, right? Because when you have limited visibility to what you could do with the data, you really don't have a full perspective of what is within the data scope that I have, that I could know if I could, so say, decipher the right data points out of this, right? So we have been very focused on really trying to understand how can we lift certain aspects of the data for making an impact on the customer. And that data could be in many contexts, right? It could be efficiency, it could be experience, it could be innovation, it could be automation, and what have you, right? The data in the end is fundamental to all of these aspects. But when you start this discussion, it's often, why do you want my data kind of discussion, right? So it is important, of course, that this is a collaborative perspective, because there needs to be an impact, a benefit back. Yeah, otherwise, collaboration does not happen, right? So we need to contribute. We need to embed our knowledge and expertise into the ways of working, and our customers, they embed their knowledge and expertise, and together we drive more insights from the data, and then we both benefit from evolving the advancements in all of our technologies that ultimately, again, helps our customers.
Yeah. We're starting to see actual productization of data and analytics themselves. So even though you might be a networking and telecommunications company where your bread and butter is hardware, software, networking devices, when you take advantage of the insights you can gain through those devices and relationships, you might be able to actually productize the analytics and sell that back and monetize that as a line item, as an actual
Right.
profit and loss center, more emphasis on the profit. So are you starting to do that? Are you seeing that where your data and analytics becomes yet another product set for Ericsson?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we have seen this as kind of three steps on a ladder perspective, right? I mean, the first step is to really gain data insights from our products. What is the behavior? What is the configuration? And how our products are really performing in the network. So that's on the product level dimension. But then if you step up and say, okay, what is really happening on a network level, more an ecosystem on a network level, and then you begin to see what is happening network wide, and you can enrich the data points from that perspective. That drives new insights. And then you can take it to the next level above that. Look at the industry verticals that rides on the network. And then you have new data insights that you can enrich that with. So you build, so say, an incremental step of enrichments from the data to the network to the industry view. And that ultimately will drive more insights. Because in the end, when you sit there in a vertical industry, you need to have an understanding of what is the behavior of the network and what is the behavior of the product. On the flip side, applying a product into the network and driving the adoption of that also needs to have an understanding, how does it really behave in the industry perspective, whether it's in manufacturing, whether it's in other automotive industries or public safety or whatever it might be. That full dimension is important.
Yes, and having an advantage because of your perspective and doing the proper data modernization puts you in a position to then create agents and constellations of agents that are trained in unique ways through that perspective. And so those agents become not just general purpose, but very specific to what you can do as a company. Are you seeing that as an opportunity, and how far along on the agentic AI journey are you?
Yeah, this is probably the most exciting part of our journey now moving forward, right? And to your question, right? I mean, I think, or perspective, I think when you look at the adoption of Gen AI or AI in general, right? I mean, the first question it really comes, what is the precision and accuracy of this model, right? When do you begin to trust the model execution? When do you begin to trust that this is really in an autonomous perspective, the relevant recommendations, actions, and what have you to take, right? And we have seen that this is a journey, because many models, especially untrained models, they may not have more accuracy than maybe a 50, 60, 70% accuracy, right? And that may not be enough. really for a customer to take a decision on an action, because especially for us working with our customers, making a decision and taking an action of change into the network could have a huge effect. So we really want to make sure that we have the right precision and accuracy in the models that we recommend. So this is why explainability has been a key component in the ways of working around the data. And the services, again, can play a critical role there. So how do we lift explainability working with our customers? How do we drive trustworthiness in the models as we move this forward? And this is also where the agentic AI will play a significant role, because we can use agentic AI to really streamline and improve the precision of different models, because you can begin to have agentic models interact with each other to improve the precision before you ultimately make a change.
Part of the way that we want people to understand this better is not just to talk about it abstractly, but to look at specific examples and use cases. So Soren, do you have any specific examples on tactical or strategic benefits in some of these feedback loops that you've been describing? You know, maybe it's a chatbot family, for example, but are there some, concrete ways that we can describe how this is working in practice?
Yeah, I mean, we have been in the chatbot business for many years, right? And I think we all maybe see chatbots as just a very initial starting phase on this journey. I think every one of us that have been working with in our personal life with chatbots realize that it's not always working as well as we think it should work, right? But when we now move this into the Gen AI and more intelligent, it's surprising how smart the different processes can really become, right? So that is the journey we are now on, and we have a number of pilots and proof of concepts already with our customers around the world. Ultimately, this drives the journey towards intent-based setups. What is the intent that the user wants to achieve? And how do we ensure that we have the right agents to ensure that that intent is being delivered? Having the right data and the right logic to deliver on that intent. But doing so in a way that drives explainability, so that whomever is the user, whomever is the intended, so to say, control tower around this, can really understand what is happening in the network, what is happening in different contexts of actions being taken. So it's not a so to say, autonomous activity living in its own life, but it's really an augmented world where we as people around the processes are more resource managers in other ways, or managing agentic processes, ensuring they do the right thing and ensuring that the explainability is there to do the right actions based on what they know and should know, right? But we started this journey a few years back around deploying generative AI, and we have seen this, or our ambition around this is to evolve it into 3 different dimensions. One is what we refer to as talk to data. And this is deep diving into data in whatever context that the user wants to do, and leverage generative AI in that context. So talk to data is the first step. Then we talk to the digital twin, because we want to also be able to simulate different scenarios using Gen AI and agentic AI and the data behind it, of course, right? To really explore scenarios in a simulated mode, and we call that then talk to digital twin. And then the ultimate view, where we also have had a number of exploratory pilots already in place, is talk to the network, because ultimately that's where we want to be. And this is, I would say, the biggest transformation that we are on together with our customers, because we used to, for I would say the last 50 years or so, we have been very reactive in the way of working around our customers. We look at alarms, we look at configurations, and then we act and react accordingly. But now with the emergence of these technologies, we can begin to really explore in a natural language, explore what is the performance of certain products in the network, what anomalies might there be seen, and do so in a natural language form. And this is a huge transformation compared to having the expertise to really deep dive into the databases and the data context, and really filtering through the noise across all we do, lifting that to a natural language interaction, empowered by agentic AI aspects behind it, with the right data at the right time, of course, to make sure that you can bring the trustworthiness to the data.
Well, it truly sounds like you've expanded the notion of customer service and support more into a relationship with your customer and the data, that the data is almost like a third leg on the stool. There's you, your customer, and the data, and then the analytics benefits that you can enjoy working together. So what does the future portend? What do you see coming next in elevating this relationship, but that's brand new, that this really uncharted territory in terms of being able to have that relationship beyond just being reactive, as you say?
Yeah, because in the past, when we were more in the reactive mode, we were more in a holding pattern, waiting for their customers and their products to break or fail or drift off in some way, and then we jumped in and began to reactively address those with our customers. Now, the journey that we have in front of us, and to a great extent already embarked on, is the data that we can gather, the data insights that our customers can share with us, will allow us to understand the performance of our products in a much more proactive way. So we have started a practice around what we refer to as the customer success transformation. And this is probably also one of the key aspects of the journey ahead. When we have the data, when we have the intelligence, how do we really now ensure that we make the greatest impact possible on our customers' processes? That is the customer success transformation that we have embarked on. So that entails really for us to work with our customers, breaking down the silos, really understanding what is success from the customer's perspective. What is helpful for them? How could we help our customers in their processes, their models, without being intrusive to what they do and how they do things, but really understanding the data points that we can take advantage of and help guide our customers. If they have certain customer success objectives, how do we contribute through more data-driven processes, more customer-centric processes, to ensure that we can be a part of that journey and make the greatest impact that we can? In the past, I would argue that we have developed a lot of intelligent capabilities over the years. But often we develop it and then we go to the customer and say, will this apply to you? Look what we can do. This is the insights we can bring to you if you adopt this product or this service. Now, with a more customer success transformation perspective, it's really looking at the other way around. What is the customer trying to achieve? What are the bottlenecks that are in front of them? What data are they not utilizing? What insights do we have that can really bring about a difference for the customer in their journey? So this customer success transformation is really the overreaching umbrella of over everything we're trying to do around the data and the intelligent activities.
Wow, well, you can't get more strategic than that, helping your customers at the highest level to anticipate their future and then providing them what they need perhaps before they know it themselves. That's the ultimate business value, I should think. Well, great. Thank you so much. We've had our latest Data Cloud podcast guest here, Soren Marklund, the Vice President of Global Services, Technology Consulting, and AI Data Strategy at Ericsson. We so much appreciate you sharing your thoughts, expertise, and experience, Soren.
Thank you for having me. Really enjoyed it.
My pleasure.